When I re-traumatize the patient, I take away the false self and the grandiosity. What is left is most definitely a borderline. But then it's much easier to work.
Hello everybody, I'm Coach Eleanor. For more information about me, look in the description below. If you like this video, then like this video. If you want to see more of this kind of videos with me and Sam Vaknin, then subscribe, because I'm gonna have more and more interviews with him. And if you have any questions for me or for him, put it in the description below, and who knows, your question is going to be in our videos.
Dissociation is simply, some things are so intolerable, so horrible, so frightening, that it's better to not remember them. So this become automatic. It's become a habit. It's habit forming, habituation. And you continue to dissociate all your life. Same with fantasy. Fantasy feels good, feels safe. So you continue to fantasize.
Yeah.
How to get rid of these things? How to get rid of these things without providing an alternative? And what is the alternative? Because if I take away the confabulation, you're left with the dissociation. Take away the fantasy, and you're left with a narcissist's broken, damaged mental illness.
Yeah.
Fantasy allows the narcissist to believe that he's normal, not common, not average, but functional. The fantasy allows the narcissist to believe that he is self-efficacious, that he has agency, that he can make things happen, and so on. Take this away from him. What do you leave him with? The realization that he is utterly broken, damaged, and deficient and defective and hopeless. Take this away from him and you make him a borderline, actually.
Okay, so if there's therapy, therapy like you said it, are you getting to the point that to open their eyes? Because if you have to give therapy like that, they become a borderline, and then you have to give borderline therapy. So, yeah,
it's much easier to treat borderline than narcissism.
Yeah.
Because borderlines have empathy and they have emotions, dysregulated, overwhelming emotions, but they have emotions. So it's much easier, and therapy with borderlines is much more successful. DBT, for example, dialectical behavior therapy, is 50% successful with borderlines within a year. In other words, 50% of people who receive DBT lose the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
Borderline personality disorder also heals spontaneously, the spontaneous healing. 81% of borderlines by age 45 don't have borderline anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different animal. And so it's preferable to transition the narcissist to a borderline state. Now, this is not me. This is a scholar by the name of Rothstein. By the way, the shared fantasy was first described by Sander in 1989, S-A-N-D-E-R. I like to give credit.
Yeah.
Not to think that I invented it. And similarly, the idea that you can transition a narcissist to a borderline state is not mine. It's Rothstein. And Rothstein was a major scholar of personality disorders. And he said that when the child is confronted with trauma and abuse, the child tries to become a narcissist. Jung said the same, and Freud said the same in different ways. Never mind. He tries to become a narcissist. But then if the child fails to become a narcissist, for example, if the parent keeps challenging the child's grandiosity and does not allow the child to become a narcissist, then the child remains stuck at the borderline level. So the phases are trauma and abuse, borderline state, narcissistic state. And each of these phases you can get stuck. You can get stuck in the trauma phase forever. So you have a post-traumatic condition, complex trauma for life. You can get stuck in the borderline phase, and then you're borderline. Or you can graduate to narcissism, and then you're narcissist. When I re-traumatize the patient, I take away the false self and the grandiosity. What is left is most definitely a borderline. But then it's much easier to work, especially with a young borderline. Yeah. So when I take away the narcissism, I have a 4-year-old or 9-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 2-year-old with borderline features. And that's relatively easy to work with.
Yeah. I think it's very painful for a narcissist to be broken like that. So
yes.
Yeah, that's
in level one, which is first phase, there is suicidal ideation. So, because as you realize, borderlines, they have a lot of suicidal ideations and self-mutilation and so on. And 11% of borderlines commit suicide. That's how 11% of them end.
Yeah.
So when I transition the narcissist by re-traumatizing him, by breaking him, I'm simply breaking him. When I transition him to borderline, immediately, of course, there is suicidal ideation and wish to commit suicide, attempted suicide. So level 1 in cold therapy is one-on-one 24/7. I'm with the patient, literally in the same, sometimes in the same hotel or apartment. And I never leave the side of the patient for 24 hours for 7 days. After 7 days, it disappears. But there is a risk. In 40% of the cases, there's a risk.
Yeah. Oh, that's very intense. And in a narcissist, so the borderline is 11%. And from a normal narcissist, is there also...
Almost.
No, not.
Narcissism is an adaptation. It's a positive adaptation. It works very well against pain, ego dystony, shame, guilt. So narcissism works.
Yeah.
Why we cannot cure narcissism, why we cannot heal narcissism, is because it works.
Yeah.
It's a positive adaptation. It creates problems with interpersonal relationships at work, in society, but for the individual, it protects the individual from a lot of damage. And many narcissists would say, if the alternative is borderline, I want to be a narcissist. And many borderlines would say, many borderlines say, I wish I were a narcissist.
Yeah.
They don't feel pain.
Yeah, that's maybe, that would be a good metaphor to wake up. And when you are a narcissist, suddenly are normal. Or did you ever think about it to be, to how it is to be not a narcissist? Are you okay with it, or are you, yeah, would you want to change it?
I'm grieving and I'm sad that 90% of life has been denied to me. Hervey Cleckley in 1942 wrote the masterpiece, Mask of Sanity. And he was describing narcissists, he just didn't know it. So he called them psychopaths. And he wrote, it's a life unlived. Jeffrey Seinfeld used the same phrase. He said it's a life wasted, a wasteland, and a life unlived. It's a waste. It's a feeling of waste. I don't have children. I never experienced love. I was never happy. It's not a pleasant thing to be a narcissist, and that's why we have grandiosity as a compensation. Most overt narcissists, covert narcissists are much closer to the baseline. They experience this state. They are much more ego dystonic. They're much less happy, much less comfortable with their narcissism. Overt narcissists are actually, according to Cleckley and many others, overt narcissists actually are kind of borderlines. They have very powerful emotions and so on. And to suppress this and to compensate, they have this grandiosity. So they say, I'm happy with who I am. I'm the best. I am happy-go-lucky. Nothing can touch me. My way or the highway. You know, they are this kind of bravado and braggadocio and swagger. This is compensatory. Today we know it's compensatory. The recent thinking in the last 2 years is that narcissism is compensatory. There was a huge debate which easily lasted 50 years in psychology, whether narcissism is a compensation for inferiority complex, whether the narcissist internally feels inadequate. Does the narcissist feels internally that he's inferior, that he's a failure, that he's defective, that he's deficient, and then trying to compensate for it by putting a facade of I'm God. This would be the compensatory approach. And the other approach was, in the debate, the other approach, no, narcissists are really like that. They're really happy with who they are. And today, gradually, we reach the conclusion, definitely, that narcissists are compensatory.
Okay.
This debate is decided, I think.
Yeah, but if narcissists have lots of and many times narcissistic supply, are they most of the time happy because all the supply?
Yeah.
But
Not
it's
happy,
superficial.
Yes, not happy, but egosyntonic. Egosyntonic means they feel good, comfortable, elated, so on. Like a drug high. Narcissistic supply is a drug. It's a drug. These people are junkies.
Yeah.
Narcissists are junkies. We consume narcissistic supply the same way other people consume cocaine, and with the same effects.
Yeah.
We're elated. We're in the air. We're high.
Yeah, and real junkies are not happy along the line, and so yeah.
There is an underlying.
Only at the moment, and then yeah, you have to search for another shot. Yeah.
It's compulsive. It's compulsive. Yes. The search for narcissistic supply is compulsive. It's compulsion.
Yeah.
And the patterns in the narcissist's life are what is known as repetition compulsion. Narcissist repeats the same pattern, same mistakes, same outcome, same pattern, same mistakes, same outcome, etc., etc.